So, do you feel like the motives of Kurtz and Marlowe were the same, or could be like the same as what we saw in Hitler and all of his men during World War II?
No, I don't think it's the same at all. Marlowe and Kurtz are very different. Marlowe Marlowe's an adventurer. He wanted this job simply because the snake charmed him. When looking at maps, blank spots intrigue him, and he wants to find out what's there. He was not an imperialist. He was not interested in the company and the money. He was interested in adventure. And he's very detached from what's happening. He's an observer, and so I think his perspective is interesting, and I think it's important to note that he's detached, so we get some sense of impartiality from him, because he's not a company man, nor is he there advocating for the rights of the natives. I mean, he's just sort of there, and he's no saint. He's not. Marlowe, I don't think, is somebody to necessarily look up to or respect. He's just a regular man who has flaws just like everyone else. Kurtz, however, went to Africa with a goal, and let's see, we learn his goal when the manager is talking to his uncle, or excuse me, not to his uncle, to the brickmaker. Let's see. All right. So I don't know if you guys recall in part one. Let's see. Marlowe's talking to the brickmaker, and he's getting some information about Kurtz from him, and again, very, very little. He gets a little information from the accountant. Later on, when he's on the steamboat, he overhears a conversation between the manager and the manager's uncle, who's come to pillage, and so he gets these little snippets of information about Kurtz, but who Kurtz is very unclear to him until the end of the novella. But when he overhears the conversation between the manager and his uncle, he gets a lot of information that I think helps him understand. The uncle quotes what Kurtz said, and I consider this sort of Kurtz's dream. This is why Kurtz came, perhaps. Each station should be like a beacon on the road towards better things, a center for trade, of course, but also for humanizing, improving, and instructing. And then, of course, the men who are talking, they hate Kurtz. They're there for the money and the money only. Mm-hmm. And so after that, he says, "Conceive you that ass," and he wants to be manager. And he's indignant. The manager and the uncle are just disgusted by this idea. What are you, humanizing, instructing? That's ridiculous. We're here to get as much money as we can, as quickly as we can, and we're not here for these moral reasons. But Kurtz seems to have come for that, and so they hate Marlowe too, because they think, and they're wrong, but they think Marlowe's part of this new gang of virtue, these people who are coming with the intention of doing good and civilizing and helping the natives become, well, more like them, the white men. So Kurtz arrives with good intentions, but I think he quickly recognizes that imperialism is a lie. And again, in that conversation, he learns that Kurtz turned his back, literally and figuratively, on that central station, on the manager, on the company. He turns his back on them and goes back alone. he leaves his assistant to go on back to the central station on his own, and he goes back, and he does whatever's necessary in order to get as much ivory as possible, and he becomes a god, and that is the most effective, efficient way for him to gather that ivory and get them to do what they want. And he writes his paper about that, this idea that, you know, because they see him as a god, he can get them to do whatever he wants them to do. And really, that's what the company wants, but they want to cover it up, they want to lie about it and make it seem like what they're doing is good and moral, but because Kurtz doesn't and he just puts it right out there, sure, let him see me as a god, and they'll do for me whatever I want. He's no less moral than any of those company men. The only difference is he doesn't cover up his crimes like they do, and he doesn't pretend to be something that they do. So yeah, I think Marlowe and Kurtz are two very different men, and I think as far as the connection with Hitler, I don't think there is anything moral about Hitler. I don't think he ever had good intentions. I think the only connection I could make is the idea that when people have too much power, they go too far, and you have to stop people early. And if you don't stop them, if somebody had stepped in and stopped Hitler the first time, he exceeded the number of troops he was allowed to have because of the post-World War I, was it Treaty of Versailles? If the first time he crossed that line and tried to have more power than he should have, you know, perhaps the Holocaust wouldn't have happened. You can't ever allow people to get to the point where they have nearly absolute power.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel like Marlowe felt bad when he heard what Kurtz was doing? The little pieces that he got?
Bad?
Or did he just ignore them? Do you think?
Well, I don't think he saw clearly who Kurtz was until he saw him face to face. I think Kurtz intrigued him, and he was very interested in him because he saw Kurtz as different from the company men, and the company men really represent the lie, and that for Marlowe is more disgusting than anything else. Kurtz is disgusting. They're both, Marlowe calls them both nightmares, but he says, at least I had a choice of nightmares. I'd rather see the heads on stakes out in the sunlight than have these disgusting men talk about how good they are and how they're out there this noble cause and spreading this lie, and patting themselves on the back. At least when he arrived at that interstation, as horrible as it was out there. You could see it, and Kurtz wasn't burying the evidence, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think Marlowe. I mean, Marlowe's just, I think, too detached. He's just not part of it. He's not. I don't think morally he feels a whole lot. I think he feels disgust at humanity, and recognizes our potential for evil.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think personally he feels any responsibility for the actions of these men.